The foundation or the basis for a composite report is a matrix report, right? Now, as the name suggests, a composite report is a collection of one or probably more than one matrix reports. Now, why would we create a composite report? For example, I'm saying a composite is a collection of one report or maybe more than one matrix report. So if there's just one report, or even if there are more than one reports, why would we think about creating a composite report? See, the first thing, composite report allows us to basically get data from different sources, different reports altogether, and bring them and show them and present them onto a single report. Another example, let's say I want, um, let's say I'm looking at, uh, let's assume finance data, just as an example, or maybe let's say I'm looking at the hire trend or the termination trend or just simply the headcount trend. Now we want to see the trend as of this year versus as of last year, right? Now, what do? Usually we'll create a trending report or we may create a matrix report, which basically shows us the headcount over a period of, let's say, last 1 year or 2 years or 3 years or whatever. But then I want to show them side by side, which means, let's say I want to show the hire count in March this year is, let's assume, 100, and in the column next to it I want to say show March 2021 it is 300, and then March 2020 it is X, and so on and so forth. So I want to have this unique display, which is not possible in a matrix report, because matrix report will simply get me run the query, the filter that I've put in, and it will get me an output in a set pattern. So matrix report gets me data in based on the rows and column groupings, and I don't have an option to change it, right, or modify it. Now composite report allows us to do that. So what I can do is I can create a composite report wherein I'm calling the same matrix report 2 times. The first time I'm calling it from 1st of Jan 2022 till December 31st 2022. In a column besides it, right, I can call the same report for last year's date, and then I can again call the same report. Sorry. Then I can call the same report once again in a column besides it. So I can run the same report more than one times for different date ranges to get me the output on a single report. Now I have the option to, for example, doing advanced filtering on a composite report. Let's say I'm building a report to show manager reportees, and any manager who, let's say, has zero reportee, I want to highlight that cell. So I have the option of doing that conditional formatting on a composite report. I can show data from two completely different data sources. Now, a problem with matrix report or advanced report or trending report or any other report is I can only use a single data source, right? I cannot get data from more than one data source. A composite report allows me to get data from more than one data sources by creating more than one matrix report and basically show that data together. Okay, creating a composite report, it's a bit different. Obviously, we'll first have to create these sub reports, and that is a matrix report. So I am creating a custom report. So let's say I want to get a count of all standard reports and custom reports in the system. This is a very simple use cases. So I'm creating a matrix report and I'm calling it sub report 1 all custom reports. Now, to get data for custom reports, I have a data source called all custom reports or custom reports. Now, this would only get details of custom reports. Right? So this data source, the problem is this will only get me details of custom reports. I'm selecting this. Right? In row grouping, I'm selecting. So basically, I want to get a count of all the different reports based on the report type. So I want to see, let's say, how many advanced reports are there, how many matrix custom reports are there, and so on and so forth. So I'm selecting row grouping as report type, right? What is report type? Report type is simply a field, right? And it gives me the type of that report. So whether it is simple, advanced, matrix, and so on and so forth. Okay. And do I want to do anything? And this is all I'm doing for now. Let's quickly run this report. Right? So it shows me that there are total 2,777 custom reports, out of which this is the count of advanced reports and so on and so forth. Right? Okay, I also want to get a count of all standard reports. So once again, how many standard reports are there of type matrix, type composite, simple, and so on and so forth. So I'm creating one more matrix report. Right? For this, we have a different data source, which is all standard reports.
So we can create two different matrix report with two different data source and use them in
Exactly.
a composite report.
In a
Okay.
single. So that's what I'm saying. You can, you want to get data for the same report for different durations. Now you may not be able to do that. For example, I was working on a requirement long back, wherein we basically wanted to know the number of um, candidates who have been applying, or the number of job applications being received every week. Right now, there was no option to get this data on a recurring basis. So what did we do? We created a single report, a single matrix report, and then we called the same report more than one time for different date ranges. So that is one use case. The second use case is this one. I have two different data sources, right? Now there's no way I can get all this data into a single report. Now what do I do? I can create a composite report, right? So this report is based on all standard reports, and it only gives me standard reports in the system. This data source, the one I have selected, only gives me custom reports on the system. So there's no way I can get this data or this output into a single matrix or a single advanced report. Right? These are completely different business objects altogether. So not just two data sources of the same business object. So if I go back, so if you see it's not just data sources are different, the business object itself is completely different. So this is based on custom report business object, and this is based on standard report business object, right? So two different data sources from completely different BOs, and I can bring them together. Okay, let's see how that is done. Once again, I want to get output based on the different report type, which is advanced, matrix, transpose, and so on and so forth. I am simply running this. Right? It gives me the same information, but the difference is, let's run this side by side. Okay, so the difference is these are all standard reports. Okay, now I want to show this information side by side, right? So I want to see total number of advanced reports in my system, standard plus composite, and so on and so forth. So how do I do that? I would go ahead and create a composite report. Creating a composite report, same task, create custom report, right? So I would select create custom report, right? The difference is my report type is composite. Now, the moment I select a report type as composite, if you see my screen layout changes a bit, right? Okay, why is that the case? See, I'm getting data from two different reports or maybe more than two different reports, right? Now, this composite report needs a way to present the data together. So let's say I have one report for worker and let's say another report for position. Now, can I bring this data together? Probably yes, probably not. The only way I can bring this data together is if both those reports have the business object or the field in common. Which field in common? It is basically the group by field in common. So it doesn't matter if they are on completely different business objects or data sources. As long as the group by field is common, I can bring those reports together, right? Okay. Prompt set, we have already looked at prompt set when we talked about dashboard, right? So it basically allows me, and I think we discussed that earlier. So I can create a prompt set, and the idea is if because I'm passing parameters to multiple sub reports, same is the case with a dashboard. So when we build a dashboard has more than one report, right? It may have
Sir,
one to
one question here. So composite report will always be used when we are using more than one report. We can't create a single.
that's what I'm
Re-
saying.
hmm.
That's what I'm saying. See, okay, so I can create a composite report, right? Wherein I'm just referencing a single sub report. See, Workday would not say, why is that you're using only one sub report? It will not give me an error, right? The only reason I would want to create a composite report when it is only referencing a single sub report is when I don't get, right? Obviously, if I'm getting everything in the sub report, why would I go ahead and create another report, composite report? Right? So the use case is, let's say I want to run this report for different durations, right? That's the use case wherein we use a single report and get the data into a composite report. But Workday as such would not give you an error. It will not say why is that you're not using more than one report in a composite report.
Different
Okay.
duration means suppose a higher trend should
For
be like for.
let's say you are running this sub report here, you want to get higher trend for 2022. So when you first run it, it gives you Jan trend of 100 and Feb trend of 500. But at the same time, you also want to get 2021. So you would again call the same sub report, which is SUP So you are again calling the same sub report, but this time you're getting data for 2021, right? We'll see that as an example, right?
Okay, okay, sure.
Let's first quickly look at that. Okay, a prompt set we already know because we are calling more than one sub report, or we may be calling more than one sub report. Are there any common parameters that we want to pass to all those reports? If that is the case, we can create a prompt set. We have already seen how a prompt set is created when we looked at uh, our dashboard, right? I can create a prompt set. I can,
If you can show us one more, yeah.
right? So let's say I'm calling it report type. We have value. One limitation of prompt set is not everything is available. So you cannot go ahead and pull everything on a prompt set. Okay, let's for now select worker type and we'll use it later. We'll see if we can use this later. And let's say country or maybe company. Okay, there are quite a few company parameters. We need to know which one is. Okay, let's select this one. One way to check is what values it shows. Okay, it's showing me company values. So this is how I can quickly check whether I'm selecting the right field or not. If, for example, I would have selected, let's see what options show up if I select a different company. Let's take this one. So these are all different parameters available. Okay, all of these look relevant. It is categorized as payroll. I would select something which is, I think this is financial accounting and this is business asset. Reporting transactions. Okay, so I'm creating a prompt set and my prompt set is created, right? Which means I can copy this prompt set into my custom report, right? Now, whatever values I'm passing through here, they can then be passed into my sub reports because internally I'm calling multiple sub reports. In which ways we'll have a look at this
Sir,
in
can you
our
please
next.
explain once again? Prompt
Yeah,
set, how will that?
I'll
Okay, so
I'll
green.
I'll take
Okay,
another example, right? I'll
okay,
show you.
sure.
So we'll use this. This is obviously not relevant in this case. We don't have worker type and company, right? I'll show with another example. Okay. So my report name is all uh, reports in Tenet. This is my composite report name, right? Now, what is the business object I select? So this is the business object. This is what allows you to group your data together, right? As I mentioned, how will Workday identify which reports to get data from? Based on the common grouping parameter that you have selected. The same parameter can then also be used for your filtering. Okay, so and how do you select or define what business object to select here? Because both your sub reports have completely different business objects, right? So you are not actually selecting business object in this case. So both your sub reports have different business objects. So what do you define here as a business object? You actually define the grouping parameter. I'm selecting because both these reports, they have the same grouping parameter. That is what I'm going to select here. right? Okay, now the next screen, if you see it, it looks completely different from any other report screen that we have seen till now. So this is how my composite report screen looks. Okay, now what are we doing? The first thing that I'll have to define is the control field. So what is the control field? Control field is basically, or the control column is basically the column which allows me to get data from different subreports. So these are my columns. These are my rows. So the first column that I need to define is my control column. So I'll click here, down arrow, and I need to define a control field, right? This is a prerequisite. So the first column is always the control column. Okay, the business object that I selected is pre-enabled for me, right? I'll call it, again, I'll give it the same name. I can give any name, but I'm giving it the name as report types. Okay, at this point in time, I can define some style. So in a matrix or an advanced report, we don't have an option to define a style, right? For example, in this case, I can go ahead and align it to center. I can make something bold. I can make something colorful. We'll look at those examples in a bit. For now, let's see how it looks in a plain version. So first, we define the control field. The second column onwards, we define what data we want to pull on this report. So the second column, I'll click here, and this is where I define the data. Okay, how am I getting my data? From the sub reports. So when I click here, let's see what sub reports are available. Okay, if you see, only 3 sub reports are available, even though there are so many matrix reports in the system, right? If I run this report, we saw that there were at least, I think, 100, 200 matrix reports. Let's run this custom reports once again. So how many custom matrix reports are there? There are 865 matrix reports. But why is that? When I try defining my data in the sub report, only these 3 reports are available. The reason is we have selected the business object as a report type, right? We have also defined our control field as a report type. So now it is basically checking how many custom reports are there which use the same grouping parameter. So Workday basically identifies, or the composite report basically groups data based on the grouping parameter that we have selected, right? And what is the grouping parameter we have selected? We have selected report type. So how many custom reports are grouped on report type? There are just 3 custom reports. So it's only showing me those reports. If I open this one, let's look at this report. We have not created it. It's already existing. Right? Okay. A chart type is again same as the report type. So it basically looks at the same as the advanced, the reporting grouping option. It looks at the relevant fields. Right? So only because these 3 reports are relevant, it's allowing me to select only these 3 reports. I cannot select any other report in this composite report. So let's take this report, right? So this is the name of my sub report, but my column heading, I want to give some relevant name. So I am saying custom reports by type, right? Okay. The next thing, what fields do I want to select? So this custom report only has one aggregation field. And that's why that aggregation field is getting defaulted. Had I selected more than one aggregation field in this custom report, then Workday would have given me an option, which of those aggregations do I want to select, right? So this is basically the count field, which is defined on this sub report. So basically what I'm saying is on column 2, get data from this sub report and basically show these values, the count values. Again, if I want, I can define some style. And I'm saying, okay. Okay. Then I want to also get data from the second sub report, which is basically standard reports. So I would come in here, define data field. It shows me all sub reports once again, right? This time I want to select the second one. And again, the second report also has only count. Right? Let's run this report. Okay, let's also run these reports side by side and see what is happening. Okay, so 1645 advanced reports, standard, and 1558 advanced reports custom. So when I run here, it's getting me that there are, so this is how I can get data from different sources, right? I can do some additional calculations as well. So let's say I want to get a total count. So I can come in here. I want to get a total of standard advanced reports, custom advanced reports. So I can come in here, right? And now I want to define a calculation. So I want to basically sum the output of 1558, 1645 to get total how many advanced reports are there. So if you see now, I can sum output which is coming from different sub reports. So I'm saying sum, or I have other options as well. I can find the difference, I can divide, I can do any calculations. Right? So I'm saying some data starting from C2, C1 is not selected because C1 is basically my control column. So I'm saying starting column C2, which is basically custom reports, and ending column is C3. And I'm calling it total count. Right? So if you see, it makes all these options are just not possible in any other report type, right? I cannot add two different columns or two different rows in any other report type. And when I run it, right? So 14 custom reports, 10 standard reports, overall count of 24. Whatever drill down options we have defined on our matrix report, they are also supported here. So any drill down options that I would have configured, they are all available here, right? Okay, I want, let's say, to make this centered, right? I want to define some styling. So I would come to style, right? There are lots of styles available. So I want to align them, let's say centered, or I want to make them blue, or I want to make them bold, right? Or I want to define my own custom style. So here I can define my own style. I'm calling it uh, report style, any name that I'm giving it. Right? Do I want to override the number? Do I want any specific format? Right? So here I can select any format that I want. Right? 2 decimal places, 3 decimal places. I don't want any decimal places. I want percentages. I can define those options. I can define what font do I need. I want, let's say bold, right? I want these to be large. Do I want them to be underlined? No underlined. Let's say I want them in red color, right? Alignment, I want to be, let's say centered aligned, right? I can define how many spaces do I want, right? Fill, do I want to fill any color? Again, not all color options are available. These are the only options available. So let's say I want yellow color. I'm just randomly selecting. Do I want any border? So I can define my own style, right? I can define the top color, bottom color, so on and so forth, right? Maybe let's leave this. I can define the column width that I want. So you see, I can define my own style and then I can apply that style to a specific column. So I have that option of doing conditional formatting. Let's run this, right? So Composite report gives me all these options, right? Uh, let's see if I can create one more report. Uh, Create custom report. I'll show you in a use case real quick of how to, or why would you want to create a composite report for a single report. Okay, let's see what options are available. Uh, I'm calling it sub report 1 or sub report worker.
This is another
Yeah,
example you're giving.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Worker hire date. Just let's see what data we can pull on this. Mm, let's see what um active status. Uh, okay, I'm just taking a random example. Let's say I want to get uh, what example can we pull? Termination date. Okay. So basically what I want is, let's take that example that we have thought of. I'm creating a calc field of type format date, CF format date on worker business object. Uh, I'm calling it, so I basically want to get the month in which the person was hired. So I'm taking hire date as the input, and I want to get the month. Yeah, let's take month. Mm, okay, this is returning a, this is actually returning a text. Mm, mm, mm. Can I think of any other example? Okay, let's take company. Mm, so
So
basically
what are
what
we trying to do in this report? We created
uh,
another report for work with worker
yes,
for
so basically I'm just thinking, I want, let's say, all company, all employees
Mhm.
uh, belonging to GMS. uh, okay, let's first create it and we'll see how. Not prompt. Mm, okay. All right. Okay, so I've created a very simple matrix report. Um, it basically gets me uh, all the companies or the count of workers in each of the company. Let me quickly run this. We'll see. Okay, because I've selected prompt the user for value, it's basically asking me if I don't enter any input. So let me select global modern services. Okay, if I select these companies and run this report, it gives me for each of those companies the count of users, right? A very simple matrix report. Okay, now let's go ahead and create a composite report. I'm creating a composite report. I'm calling it all GMS, non-GMS workers. I am selecting the business object
Sir, can you
as
please show that report once again, please? I just kind of lost screen. I just want to see what all you created. Okay, company.
that is
Okay,
all.
just company. Okay,
Exactly.
okay.
Composite report, selecting company, right? Because my grouping parameter there is company. I've selected company here and I'm calling it all GMS, non-GMS workers, right? Okay. Now, once again, I'll have to define my control field. Right? So company is my only business object available. So I'm calling it company and okay. Right. I am now defining my data field. Right. Now it will basically get me all the matrix reports which are built on company, right? There are quite a few matrix reports which are built on company, and that's why it is giving me all those options. What is R1? Worker hire date. This is the one we have created, right? Once again, I want to get the only fields to aggregate is this, just count, and that's gets defaulted. Here, I'm calling this GMS companies, right? Okay, here I'm selecting company as specify value. So for this first column, if I run this report, if you see, these are the prompt options I have to enter, right? It's showing me the same prompt options. So company, I'm saying, okay, select global modern services. And let's just select two companies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just select 5 companies, right? Okay. And I'm calling it okay. I'm defining a new column, new data column. Once again, I'm calling the same report. Search for hire, right? I'm calling the same report. I'm calling this non-GMS companies. Right? Here, if you see, because the report is same, the prompt options are exactly the same. Right? I would say specify value, and I'm selecting a different set of companies. So here I'm getting, let's say these are the 5 companies that I'm selecting here. And okay. So if you see, had I, let's say I want to get details of all employees in GMS companies versus non-GMS companies, what would I do? I would first run this matrix report, select GMS companies, and it will give me all GMS company details. Then I'll run it once again. Then I'll select non-GMS companies and it will get me the output. But here, what I'm basically trying to achieve is in a single report, single composite report, I'm calling the same sub report more than once, but inputting two different parameters. So now when I run it, it will get me some weird output in the sense some employees, right? Because these parameters have not defaulted any value, they are still getting prompted. But because I have specified parameters for companies, if you see GMS companies, in prompt, I had only selected these 5 companies and it is getting me data for those 5 companies here. Values are all 0 here, but these 3 or 4 companies I selected here and it's getting me data, right? So this is just an example to show how I can call the same report more than once, multiple times by inputting different parameters and get the output parallelly together. Make sense?
So these are the GMS. You created one report, right? So
Exactly.
I'm not able to understand. Yeah.
Yeah. What is your question?
No, I'm just trying to see like you how does this GMS companies and non-GMS companies are appearing.
Mhm. Okay, that's fine. The recording will be available to you. This is
Sure, sure.
very simple use case that I
Okay,
have,
okay,
right?
okay. Sure, sir, sure.
I'm
Because we have
just
not seen this report previously,
exactly.
so that's why it's taking a little longer time.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Huh.
So just remember that I'm basically calling the same report
Hmm.
more than one time,
Hmm.
and I'm calling this report with different parameters, and I'm
Okay,
getting the
okay.
data together
Hmm. Okay,
on a
got it.
single
Usually,
screen.
like when we run in a matrix report, we can only give one parameter, right? At a time.
Exactly. So
We can
had
give.
I wanted the same output, I would have first selected these 5 GMS companies and then it
Hmm.
would have given me the data. Once again, I
Okay.
would have run that report. I would have selected these non-GMS companies and then it would have given me data.
Got
So
it
now
now. Got
instead
it.
of
Yeah.
that, I'm
Hmm.
getting data on a single screen, right?
Right. Right.
Again, so this is just an example or a use case wherein I would want to use a single sub report but include it in a composite report,
Right. Right.
right?
No, got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
um let's say now if you see in both these reports, it or both the times I'm calling this report, I'm basically passing the same parameters, right? Worker type, worker subtype. So I can use a prompt set here. So I can come in here, right? I can click on this gear icon at the top, right? And we had created a prompt set called report type. I can use that prompt set. So
Okay.
here I can define, okay, what prompt set am I using? So I had created a prompt set called report type. I'm using that. Now when I go to prompts, populate undefined prompt defaults, right? Okay. One of these parameters is actually coming from the the prompt set that we selected. The other parameter is coming from this
Data source.
company. Exactly. So that's why you see two different options. I can come in here and I can specify a default value. So this is how I can pass parameters to multiple reports using a prompt set, right? So I can come in here. Obviously, we don't need company because we are passing different parameters for company. So if I go to that report type prompt set, or I'll edit prompt set. We'll have to first unuse this prompt set, else system would. and delete this. Right now, when I check this box, right, these are the values which are coming from both the report that I have called. So instead of populating this value, I can simply say do not populate. Okay, let's go back to our prompt set, which is report type. Right, I don't want this. I'm saying, let's say country. I'm just selecting a random value. Okay, I can say okay. Let's take Australia, Bahamas, or some random companies. China, Denmark.
So, sir, in composite report, we always have to create a prompt set, right?
Not necessary, right? Because when I created my first report, I didn't create a prompt set. So
But if
prompt
we
set
want
is,
prompts, then
yes,
we have to create through a prompt set, like in advance, or we
again,
can directly use
again
it.
not required, again not
Okay.
required. So
Okay.
prompt set just makes it convenient. You can
Convenient.
pass the parameters together. That's it.
Okay.
If you see, I can still pass all parameters here,
Yeah, it's
right?
exactly the same way. We can create it here
Exactly.
also.
Exactly. But prompt set only makes it a bit more convenient. So I can now select my report type prompt set here. And when I go to prompts, I can, if you see here, I can now go ahead and say, specify default value, and I can pass the parameter together for all my reports. Right? So prompt set just makes it a bit more convenient, but you can always go ahead and create a dashboard. You can always go ahead and create a composite report without prompt sets. It is not mandatory, never. Okay, it's just an optional setting. All right. Composite reports, the whole use case or the reason Workday delivered composite reports was so that they could be used in financial reporting. So they are used to a very large extent in Workday Finance. Workday HCM, they're not really. So I usually see a project wherein probably there are just one composite report, not even one composite report. So in HCM, we don't use composite report to that extent, though there are use cases. They are majorly used or primarily used in the case of Workday Finance. Right?